Good afternoon. I call this meeting of the Job Growth, Energy, Affordability, Policy, and Finance Committee to order. Despite the weather outside, today is in fact Monday, April 16th, 2018. First order of business is approval of the minutes from April 13th. Representative Moran moves approval of the minutes dated April 13th. Is there any corrections, changes, or additions? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion prevails. The minutes are adopted. Members, today we're going to be hearing House File 4061, a McDonald bill. The chair will move House File 4061 for possible inclusion in a later bill. And just to give members kind of a guidepost for how the discussion will go today, what we're going to do is we're going to let the author present the bill, bring up his invited testifiers for approximately the first 40 minutes of the hearing. After that, those who are concerned or those who are opposed to the bill, we'll give them about 7 or 8 minutes total. No, I'm just kidding. We'll give them, we'll give the opponents, again, up to 40 minutes, equal time, and then we'll reserve the remaining balance of the committee time until 3 o'clock, until 2:45 for member questions, comments on the subject. Members, I don't anticipate a vote on the bill, but we'll be laying it over. And so with that, if I have a list of invited testifiers here, and again, Representative McDonald, just because you have 40 minutes doesn't mean you have to use up to the full 40 minutes. But again, for those supporters and opponents, if you want to sign up as a testifier, please, if you're not already signed up, please reach out to the committee staff that are here, the committee pages, to sign up. In the event that we exhaust the amount of time because someone speaks for 39 minutes on one side of the issue, reminder that people can submit written testimony and we will distribute that to members of the committee. It can be printed out or it can be emailed to me and we'll share that with members of the committee. With that, so again, the chair renews his, I already moved the bill, so Representative McDonald, if you could walk through your bill, we're not going to present your formal amendment yet, your delete all amendment, but if you could just describe the bill as if though the delete all amendment is before us. Representative McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm pleased to present to you today House File 4061. 4061 is a simple bill which amends the minimum wage statute to create a new wage category for workers who earn tips. When this is adopted, Minnesota will become the 44th state to recognize that tips play a very important role in the total earnings for many, many workers. We would be continuing a trend in America. Hawaii recognized the importance of tips in 2016, and Maine passed a law confirming the importance of tips just last year. So what does this bill do? Good question. House File 4061 recognizes that an employee's total earnings with an hourly wage and reported tips, their combined earnings, are what makes the difference in their standard of living. Tips count for payroll taxes, Social Security, and Medicare. There is a smart and fair way to have tips play in a role for minimum wage as well. I would like Ben Weeks from the House Research to explain exactly the peculiars of the bill and how it works, Mr. Chair, if that's all right with you. And then I have a representative, Mr. Todd Hill, is going to speak on behalf of the Minnesota Restaurant Associations and make some brief comments. And the gist of our testimony, hopefully not 40 minutes each, but if that's what it takes, there's a rumor there's a snowstorm on its way, so you might want to cut that in half. They're going to really take over the show and give some great testimony and witness to their industry. Mr. Chair, I turn it over to you.
All right, so Nonpartisan Research just wants to provide a brief overview of the DE2 amendment. Mr. Weeks.
Chair Garofalo, members, so like Representative McDonald said, this bill would create a new category of minimum wage for tipped employees, or more specifically, two categories, one for tipped employees of small employers, those with $500,000 of gross receipts or less a year, and another one for large employers, those with $500,000 or more. The mechanism used, it creates a base wage, which is tied to the current minimum wages, $9.65 an hour for large employers and $7.87 an hour for small employers. And that base wage will stay the same as the minimum wage for non-tipped employees will increase with inflation over time. But what it does is create a combined wage, which is an employee's average hourly wage of base wage and tips, taken the average over a work week. That amount is $14 combined for large employers and $12 combined for small employers. That combined wage is indexed to inflation to increase for inflation using the same mechanism that increases the minimum wage now under current law. So basically, if an employee of a large employer earns at least $14 combined in tips and base wage, then her base wage is $9.65. If, however, that same employee earned less than $14 an hour in combined base wage and tips, then that employee's wage would default to whatever the then in effect higher state or federal minimum wage is.
Thank you. And Mr. Weeks, just with regards to like someone who, let's say, has a training wage, because there are other exceptions to the minimum wage. How does that interact with this bill? It's like I think the training wage right now can be as low as $6.50 or $7 an hour. And maybe I should have asked you that privately before I asked you publicly.
My understanding, Mr. Chair, is that the training wage would stay separate as the training wage. This would affect tipped employees who are otherwise paid the normal minimum wage.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Just one clarification.
Representative Thiessen.
Thank you, Mr. So does this change week to week then?
Mr. Weeks.
Chair Garofalo, Representative Thiessen, yeah, it could change week to week because you take the average hourly wage for a work week, whatever the fixed 7-day period is that sets minimum wage now.
Representative McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. With that, I'd like to turn it over to our next testifier, Mr. Todd Hill.
Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, my name is Todd Hill with Hill Capital Strategies, and I'm here on behalf of my client, the Minnesota Restaurant Association. Let me start by apologizing for Dan McElroy. He's not able to be here today, so he asked me to pitch hit for him, and I'll cut my comments back substantially from the written ones that he provided me. But I think everyone in this room knows that recognizing tips as wages and preserving tips for our employees has been a priority for the Minnesota Restaurant Association for some time. I want to thank the committee and Representative McDonald for giving us the opportunity to talk about this today and talk about the need for preserving these high-paying, good jobs in our industry. Instead of taking up much of the committee's time, though, I'm going to instead turn this over to the hardworking employees of our industry that are here today that will give you the reasons why they support this legislation, and then I'll stand for any questions once they're done with their testimony, if that's okay.
Thank you. Representative McDonald, do you want me to go off the list that I have in order here, or do you have your own list?
I think that would be prudent, Mr. Chair.
That doesn't answer my question, but I'll just read the list.
Go off your list.
So, Jennifer Schellenberg and Adam Borgen, you're on deck. Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Hello, thank you. I'm Jennifer Schellenberg. I'm a bartender at Northbound Brew Pub and the president of Restaurant Workers of America. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and representatives, for seeing this bill and giving our community the opportunity to speak to you today. I was born and raised in Delano, Minnesota. It was there that I got my first job and my start in the restaurant industry. It started at the age of 13 in a very small Chinese restaurant as a dishwasher making $3.65 an hour. A restaurant that to this day employs and trains local youth. By the time I was 14, I was working 2 jobs, maintaining a hectic work schedule to support myself through my high school years so that I could move out and on my own before turning 18. Fast forward 12 more years, and here I am, standing before you as a professional in my industry. That's not because someone told me that I am worth any particular salary or station, but because my own hard work and dedication in this industry has earned me a professional's income. As the push for 15, or specifically a higher minimum wage, moves across the country, there's a growing concern within our community about the future of our careers and our income. The need to recognize our taxable tipped income in Minnesota as part of our wages is not an issue of politics. This is an issue of math. Servers and bartenders in the full-service restaurant community are the highest paid people. This is common knowledge and is reflected in the income tax-based surveys done in both Minneapolis and Seattle. Today, however, you're going to hear our opponents claim that tipped workers make very little money, on average less than $11 an hour. What they're referring to in that claim is a statistic given by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. I can tell you a lot about why that is incorrect, given that I've actually talked to the director of our category of the BLS personally. But the most important takeaway of BLS statistics for our category, sorry, I lost my place. The most important takeaway is that their statistics for restaurant workers shows that cafeteria workers, cooks, hosts, and dishwashers make more than the average server and bartender, and we all know this to be patently false. Our opponents are also going to claim that this is just the right thing to do to raise our wage continually with the standard minimum wage. The right thing to do is to raise the wage and provide more equitable wages for the back of house. That should be where our priority lies in our community. You're also going to hear our opponents claim that we need a pay increase to combat sexual harassment. As a woman who has worked for tips for more than half of my life, I find this comment both condescending and nonsensical. Aside from my personal feelings, third-party data does not support these claims. Opponents are going to cite statistics that come from a non-peer-reviewed survey of its organization's own members. But the fact is that the EEOC data shows manufacturing to be the industry with the highest rates of sexual harassment. Public administration is the highest per capita, and healthcare work to be just below for food service accommodation claims. This is important because that data also reflects that each of those three industries pay significantly higher than ours. To boot, the EEOC data also shows absolutely no correlation to sexual harassment and tip credit states. For example, the EEOC data shows that California, where there is no tip credit, has higher sexual harassment rates than New York, a densely populated tip credit state. I'm here today representing thousands of tipped workers that have been fighting for a tiered wage already. Our group right now is 8,000 strong. Today, we bring 2,000 signatures from our 2017 petition for a tip credit in Minneapolis, along with the countless testimonials from people in our community who know the consequences of moving forward without a tiered wage. I would challenge you as you move through testimony to ask each speaker if they have ever been paid to do advocacy work for or against a tiered wage. I can assure you that not one of the speakers in favor of a tiered wage has. I would also challenge you to ask each speaker if they work in the full-service restaurant community and for how long. Many of the opponents are not members of our full-service community and will not be affected by the legislation. We are the full-service tipped workers. We are the stakeholders, and we want a tiered wage for the betterment of our community and for the protection of our tipped income. Thank you very much for hearing us today.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Next on the list is Adam Borgen. Am I saying that right? And Alvin Lundy, you're on deck. And if we could, if you're the testifier who's on deck, maybe you want to come back here and just be waiting behind the chair so that way there's less walk-up time. So welcome to committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you very much. My name is Adam Borgen. I live in Minneapolis and have been a full-service restaurant worker for over 16 years in Minnesota. I'd like to thank you, Mr. Chairman, and the committee for hearing us today in regards to the two-tiered minimum wage bill in front of you. Like I said, I have been a restaurant worker for the good majority of my life. I started out in Wilmer, Minnesota, where I started off at the very bottom as a host and have made countless moves and countless career changes to make my way up to one of the higher echelons of service industry in the Minneapolis and Twin Cities area. I'm a bartender at Smack Shack. I also do nonprofit work with a nonprofit organization called Serving Those Serving, in which I sit on the board of directorship and volunteer my time and energy helping out the community before you in preservation of our way of life. Our goal is to provide a livable wage to Minnesota workers via a two-tiered system, recognizing tips as taxable wages and thus part of what should be counted as our minimum wage. The goal of this is to keep jobs intact and to keep businesses open. We want to prevent our job loss to automation by allowing owners to budget for their upcoming labor expenses. If a business cannot afford to pay a human worker a livable wage, they will substitute that human worker for an automated system, whether that be a digital system, an iPad system, or things like that. An iPad does not need to pay a mortgage. An iPad does not need to provide daycare. We do. We want to prevent job loss due to those unreasonable profit margins. Restaurants operate on a very thin profit margin, much thinner than many other industries, average about 3 to 5% profit margins. Any disruption in this profit margin towards increased labor costs would either close the doors to the restaurant or increase menu prices and item prices. Either way, it's a disruption to a system that has been established and heralded in the Twin Cities area as a pillar of our economy. We get Super Bowls, we get X Games, we get Final Fours because we are known as a service industry city. We are known as an entertainment beacon, and any disruption to that, I think, would be a disruption to a major furnace of economy in our state. I want to move on to things that we can afford, things that we can do because we make a fantastic wage with tipped work, with tips. We could buy a house. A few years back, I was able to buy my first house for my daughter and my family because of the tipped income that I was able to secure through conscious job moves and building of skills. And at this point, many restaurant workers in the state are millennials. According to the National Association of Realtors, millennials are one of the largest sectors of potential home buyers in Minnesota. Millennials, according to NAR, have an average income of $38,000 a year. According to the Minneapolis minimum wage survey, the average tipped worker gets $28 an hour. If that average tipped worker works 4 shifts a week at $8 an hour, 46 weeks out of the year, they're earning an income of about $42,000 a year. That provides affordable housing, as the most affordable housing is home ownership. If we want to battle rent costs, this is the way to do it. According to the Building Association of the Twin Cities, in a recent NPR article called Buying a Home, Good Luck, dated 6/15/17, 70% of the new inventory and product built in the Twin City area is valued of over $300,000. That's not very feasible if our wages were to be cut due to increased labor costs and a one-tiered system. We look at Occam's razor to provide the simplest answer to a complicated problem. We all want the same thing. It's a win-win for both sides. We want increased livable wages, but we also want to maintain the way of life that we have been accustomed to and has been working for not only the employees, but the members of the Twin City and the Minnesota community of full-service restaurant workers over time. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Elvin Lundy?
Not available. I'm Michael Angelis. I'm next on the list.
Yep. Come on up. And then Charles Lovejoy, you're on deck. Good
Hello.
afternoon. Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed with the testimony.
Thank you. My name is Michael Angelis. I am a resident of Minneapolis. I work at Smack Shack in the North Loop, have been there for 5 years, but have over 20 years in the hospitality industry. I come from a successful tip credit state in Wisconsin, not only as an employee, but from a family-owned business where I can provide direct understanding at how thin the profit margins are in the restaurant industry, even in a tip credit state. My mother worked full-time in the cities to continue to provide for our family while we still had a successful restaurant in a small town. I'm here today in part to speak of the consequences of not offering a two-wage tiered system. Restaurants, at the very least, will have to reduce their staff, reduce hours, but also completely eliminate positions as well as close their doors. According to the New York Post, Red Robin is set to save $8 million this year when they remove the expediter position in over 500 stores. CFO Guy Constant said the decision was made in order to address labor increase. Next, according to the Harvard Business School study, Survival of the Fittest, they used a San Francisco, which is a single wage city, to show the relationship of minimum wage increase and the likelihood of a restaurant to fail. They found that every dollar increase in wage increased the likelihood of a business to fail by up to 10%. This study also suggested that increase could also cause people to not only lose their jobs, but also lose affordable dining options. Affordable dining options where lower rated, cheaper restaurants would be forced to inflate their prices and then reducing what guests would consider as a value, therefore having to probably close their doors. Restaurants would also consider moving to a counter service model. This would reduce front of the house employee staff by more than 60%. And automation, the trend of automation will continue, which we don't even know how many thousands and thousands of low-wage, entry-level jobs will be lost due to this. In order to offset increased wage costs, many restaurants would move to a no-tip or service charge model. And realistically, a server charge is now just a forced tip that the house controls, that the management controls. I, like many parents, rely on my tips to take care of my family. And if we do not move to a two-tiered wage system, the very likeliness is that I will reduce my income by more than 50%, or I will have to double my hours, which takes away from the time of me being able to raise my child. I, too, am a homeowner. I, too, bought and paid for my house based on tips. I have built my skills, I have built my knowledge over the last 20 years in this industry that I love and that I care about. There's also a direct correlation of the importance of tips to the industry of arts and music and tourism in the area. If you want to think about how many service industry professionals are also artists, musicians, dancers, these are people that rely on their tips so that they can continue to build the rich fabric of arts and entertainment in our city. We will lose travel, we will lose tourism, because we will lose the individuals that create the dreams that keep the American ability to thrive on your own alive. Thank you for taking the time to listen to real industry professionals and how this affects us, our businesses, our communities, our families, and our state as a whole.
Thank you for your testimony. And let the record show we will not hold the witness's testimony against her, even though she's from Wisconsin.
I've been here for 20 years. Does that count?
Charles Lovejoy,
Hello.
state your name for the record and please proceed with your testimony.
Hi, my name is Charles Lovejoy. Thanks, Chair. Thanks, representatives, for hearing us out today. Just have a quick prepared statement here. I'm the lead bartender and bar manager at the Happy Gnome here in St. Paul. I've been in the industry for 25 years, 20 of those years as a tipped employee. My family's always been in the business of service. My brother was a general manager of a restaurant for 10 years. My little sister worked her way through law school as a server also. My mother is the executive director of the Family Place, a local nonprofit day center here in Ramsey County. She serves the needy. My story really starts, though, with my grandfather, who moved here in 1934 from the Jim Crow South as a waiter, to be a waiter on the Great Northern Railroad. He had that job for nearly 40 years. My grandfather had his master's degree in chemistry, but not many doors were open to black men at that time, even a well-educated man such as himself. He found a career in the service industry, one that allowed him to be home on the weekends to raise his 4 kids and even go to church on Sunday. He was a tipped employee. Like my grandfather, I found a career that allows me to, and my wife, who is also an industry professional, and thanks to the school closures, couldn't be here today, but we have 3 kids that we are able to raise. We have a house also. The opportunities that this industry provides us, the opportunities and pay rates in this business are literally limitless. I want to state that I am unequivocally and undoubtedly for the greater good of our society. Raise the minimum wage, please. But I fear that without a tiered system or tip credit of some sort, the opportunities for people in my industry to make meaningful money will begin to vanish. Every restaurant that closes or is forced to cut staff or hours or freeze pay rates would diminish chances for people of color to succeed and people like me to succeed. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, our industry is #1 for Latinos in management and top 10 for Asians and African Americans and also in management, showing how truly accessible upward movement is in our industry. That's it. I'd like to thank the committee for your time and your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Ken Rockler, and then Wayne. You're on deck. Thanks. Please state your name for the record and proceed with testimony.
Chairman Garofalo, members of the committee, my name is Ken Rockler, and I think I'm going to defer mostly to the servers. They do a better job than I. I will say that many of you have seen me over here on this issue in the past as a lobbyist. I'm a former bartender, former server, and once I got to own a restaurant, I became a dishwasher and a busboy also. But oh, by the way, I did such a bad job getting this bill any traction. My son fired me. He's over in the audience right there. He can verify that at this time. I would only add one thing, and that's that when they talk about the fact that Androids, service charges, surcharges, iPads, that those things are in the future, those are already here. This battle is being fought even in states where there is a tip credit. And I won't drone on because I think some of the servers will follow up. But there's already been studies done by the University of Washington. There's jobs losses on this. It doesn't take too much, and I think Charles mentioned it before. If you're a restaurant owner right now and you're trying to make the decision, what does it cost you to pay health insurance to an Android or an iPad? What does paid sick leave cut for an iPad? What is overtime? If you go to Olive Garden, this will be my last statement. I was there a couple of years ago with my significant other. They've already eliminated half their staff. So, again, I defer to anybody else here right now, but I hope you'll look at this in a bipartisan way.
Wayne Romilt, is that how you say it?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
And then Lori Luxinger, I believe you're on deck. Thank you. Welcome to committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed to testimony.
My name is Wayne Romhilt. Thank you, members of the committee, sincerely for your time. Honesty, open-mindedness, willingness. Those are the three tenets of my addiction recovery, and it's what keeps me in recovery. And I believe that they make for great a compass in the world of public servants as well. So honesty, open-mindedness, willingness. My single diehard Democratic mother raised me along with the bar she ran. So the hospitality business is in my blood. And after returning from Desert Storm in the early 90s, I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a chef. I wanted to work in the glamorous world of restaurants. And while I did go to school and found myself exploring other careers, my passion for food and beverage and hospitality superseded all other forms of work. As a former combat diver in the Navy, I was more than willing to start my professional career as a DMO, a dish machine operator. I worked my way into prepping food, then line cook, and eventually achieved chef status. But I couldn't deny my calling, the front of the house. Once again, I wholeheartedly became an apprentice as a wait assistant, barback, and then born from that, server, lead server, bartender, head bartender, supervisor, trainer, manager, GM, food and beverage manager, and a restaurant consultant. And the hardest academic test I've ever taken in my adult life was my level 2 sommelier test. And sommelier is the fancy French word for keeper of the wine. The last 25 years I've embraced and engaged in every form of growth I could get my hands on while striving to be a pro in the restaurant business. I've been a part of 41 restaurant openings, been fired from some of the best restaurants in the country, most of which have been in the Twin Cities, and my craft has allowed me to take my talents on the road to other states. But I always came back home to my 2 adult children now in my beloved Minnesota. Now here I am, 47 years old, back working as a server. This part-time work as a server is allowing me the flexibility and economic viability to transition to my current career to a new form of service. I'm going to serve veterans at the VA hospital as a peer support specialist with PTSD, mental health recovery, and addiction recovery. Selflessly, I do not want to see our world-class restaurant scene that I've worked so hard over the last 25 years to help build here in Minnesota start to unravel. Because of the astonishingly low margins that full-service restaurants exist in, a blanket wage increase without consideration of a tip credit or a 2-tiered system of wage increases will hurt not only tipped employees, but the cooks, the managers, the owners, the restaurants, the food purveyors, the brewers, the farmers, and you, the restaurant guests. Tips are wages. They've allowed me to help provide for my children, one who's in college and one who's heading to law school. They've even allowed me to pay child support. They've allowed me to dedicate a mountain of time coaching high school kids in Minnesota. So please be mindful of what motivates our opposition, as well the damage that has already been done to our industry around the nation, and inevitably the damage that could be done here in Minnesota. And I consider myself a pragmatic progressive. I would love to see my fellow citizens thrive with the help of a livable wage increase. But due diligence must be embraced by our legislators and those who would craft future laws. Tips are wages, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for your testimony. Lori Luxiner and then Jeff Crandall, you're on deck. Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed with the testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, representatives. I'm Lori Luxinger. I am celebrating 40 years in the restaurant industry. My first job title in 1977 was salad girl. And I am now a senior server and manager at W.A. Frost, where I've been employed on and off since 1985. I feel as though there are a lot of misconceptions about restaurant work, particularly regarding tipped employees, perpetrated by people who don't work in the industry but somehow assert that they are advocating for us. Thankfully, there's a mountain of data that will support our claims, and those of us invested in preserving this industry are here to share our truths. Tipped workers in the front of the house are every bit as professional, as educated, and as trained as our coworkers in the kitchen. We're here to tell you why it's important to maintain a two-tiered system whereby we continue to enjoy a good income at a lower cost to our employers, so that as the minimum wage rises, they will be able to afford to compensate non-tipped employees. There seems to be an implication that what is good for employers is bad for workers. The truth is, if we do not adopt this two-tiered system, we will lose employers. A study out of Harvard Business School showed that in a one-tiered system, for every dollar the minimum wage went up, there was up to a 10% increase in restaurant failures. Excuse me. These employers are nationally recognized, award-winning, highly educated restaurant entrepreneurs who open small businesses that employ professionals and provide a celebrated service. 9 out of 10 restaurants employ 50 people or less. They simply will not be able to absorb the costs of a one-tiered system and continue to provide the full dining experience we all currently enjoy. When you dine out, wouldn't you prefer to interact with someone who could tell you what's in that sauce? Or what wine is going to be best paired with your lamb? Or are you okay with wending your way through prompts on a tablet bolted to your table? Because that's our future. As a lifelong member of the service industry, I want to preserve it. I'm invested in it. It has provided me the ability to parent twins, get a college education, buy a house, and return the favor by being a frequent and generous restaurant consumer. Mostly, I am so appreciative that you are here willing to listen to the concerns of people who actually work in this industry, and we do so with pride. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your testimony. Jeff Crandall and then Andrew Johnson.
We actually switched around. I'm Andrew. I'm going to go in place of Jeff.
Okay.
I'll go after.
Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed to testimony.
Hello, everyone. My name is Andrew Johnson. I work in Minneapolis. I've been a server and bartender for over a decade. I went to school here in St. Paul. I went to Metro State. Loved coming to the city, but found myself living in Minneapolis. I've paid my way through college, basically, right after high school. And the tips that I made supported that. I realized that I love doing what I do, and I have remained in the industry. I never thought that I would have to plead you guys today. In 2006, when I got my first restaurant job, minimum wage was $7.25 an hour. And in 2005, hardly a year prior, it had been $6.15 an hour. I know that sounds low now. And I get that the minimum wage had to go up because the cost of living had been going up for years. But at the same time, and for many years prior, as everyone has already attested, there's a culture of tipping in our country that has radically outpaced the increases in minimum wage. Servers have generally been paid minimum wage, and as has been mentioned, in 40 other states, even a sub-minimum wage. And I'm not sure what the perfect rate is, but I'm certain that we, as servers and bartenders, can come to agree on a two-tiered wage system or some sort of tip credit here in this state. And we need to capitalize on the culture of tipping because it has been so strong. as the minimum wage has increased, what I've seen is in my restaurants that I've worked in, the first people that have been fired, the first people that have been affected or laid off have been cooks and hosts and support staff. They were the first ones to go. I've received incremental increases from $725 to $965 as I've been in the industry, and I have seen very few servers laid off as a result. In fact, it's been the kitchen staff, and it's them that I'm looking out for, because raising the minimum wage further without some sort of tiered wage will only hurt those that need the raise most. It's only been absorbed into my tipped income. That's pretty much all I have today. Yeah. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your testimony. Jeff Crandall, please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Jeffrey Crandall. I'm currently a bartender at Eagle Street Grill in St. Paul. I support a two-tiered wage. I've been in the industry for over 20 years. This is my chosen career, and I love it. Like many, I started at the bottom as a busser and a host. This gave me the opportunity to learn the skills necessary to move up to serving and then bartending. I've worked in casual corporate chains, locally owned mom-and-pop type establishments, sports bars, and fine dining. I even worked for a while in Arizona under a two-tiered wage system. Wherever I worked, one thing remained the same. I always made a good living, and I had the flexibility to pursue other endeavors. There's an effort locally and nationally to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. While 15 may not happen statewide anytime soon, a significant increase seems inevitable. This increase without a two-tiered wage will ultimately mean less jobs, less workers, workers replaced with iPads, family-owned local businesses disappearing, tips being replaced with service fees, which then become the property of the restaurant. This means workers like me who've always relied on tips to make a good living won't be able to make much more than minimum wage. A two-tiered wage helps these businesses to stay afloat, preserves the tip culture, while ensuring that all workers make at least the minimum wage with the opportunity to make significantly more. Finally, as you look around the room, you're going to see two groups of people sharply divided on this issue. Those opposed to a two-tier wage, some, if not all of them, are being paid to be here. They don't work in our industry. They have no stake in the outcome of this legislation. The other people, most dressed in black, those are the tipped workers. That's us. None of them will receive a single penny for their participation today. Not only that, some of them took time off from work to be here. They're here because they care about the future of the hospitality industry. They know the benefits any person of any economic or educational background, any race, gender, nationality can receive from being a tipped worker. A two-tiered wage helps ensure that opportunity for all. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. That completes the list of those who had testified in favor and in advance. Are there other proponents who wish to testify on this bill right now? Yep. And can I just see a show of hands if there are other testifiers? Proponents? Representative McDonald, a quick question for you. We've heard a couple testifiers mention the fact of service charges, and maybe this would be for Mr. Rockler or yourself, as service charges as being a way to account for the higher minimum wage. We had a couple of testifiers reference that. Why is that different? Why is that not as equally beneficial to tipped employees, a service charge on the tab, as opposed to just receiving a tip?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My knowledge of that comes from actually a niece who went out to dinner in Minneapolis a couple months ago, and at the bottom of their receipt was a 3% increase, 3% charge on their total bill for health care, I think it was at the time. And this seems to be a trend that's happening not only in the state of Minnesota, but other states as well. But that percentage goes right to the owner of the business, the restaurateur, and not necessarily the server. But it is a trend, nevertheless. Hopefully that was answering your question.
Mr. Schellenberg, did you wish to add anything?
Yes. I'm Jennifer Schellenberg. This is a very strong trend that's happening on the West Coast where they're getting close to hitting 15 without a tip credit. Cities like Seattle, the Bay Area. And the issue, the reason that this is coming about is because as labor prices are inflating, they have to inflate menu costs as well. So at some point, guest expectation out of pocket for guests has to be, reasonable, and there's a certain cap for that. So a lot of restaurants are accommodating this labor influx by doing a service fee, which is the property of the house and not the server. Even though there's legislation out there saying that it has to be stated openly that the service fee is not a tip, a lot of restaurants are removing the expectation of tipping for guests and saying, you pay enough, you pay the service fee, we pay our people 15, so you don't have to tip. And that's where one of the biggest concerns for our community comes from with the higher wage is the removal of expectation. Right now, our businesses with low labor costs encourage tip culture. But the concern for loss of patronage is where we see service fees and the potential end of tipping culture.
And are you available for questions at the completion of the?
Absolutely. Yes,
Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Representative McDonald.
Thank you for your question. It was a question that I had asked and had been in conversation with Mr. Rockler. Actually, I have a menu that's in front of me here from the West Coast that does put on there a 3% charge to all guest checks to help with because of the recent increases to minimum wage. So Mr. Rockler has a little bit more of input if you would allow him to expound on this question.
Yep, just, this will probably be it, because we'll be at about 40 minutes there, so then we'll move on to those with concerns to the bill. Mr. Rockler.
Chairman Graffel and members of the committee, the service charge, the surcharges are just a beginning. The service charges have already been in place in a number of areas. One of the people I used to represent up in the northern suburbs, he switched his people that were doing any large parties over to being salaried at $14 an hour 5 years ago. The reason why was by keeping the 18% service charge, he was making $7 an hour on it. Anybody here that has ever been to a Panera right now, you don't tip in Panera. There is no line on the credit card slip, I guess, unless they've added one. I haven't been in one for a couple of years. So service charges are already here. They're just spreading more and more as the wage gets higher.
And Representative McDonald.
Mr. Chair, I believe there are some folks here that potentially want to speak with concerns of the bill. I don't know if they have heard particularly that this is an opportunity for them to come down to testify.
No, we're still wrapping up your portion of the. If
you've got 40 minutes.
If
Okay.
you want to give the proponents time to the opponents, that's certainly in your.
No, Mr. Chair, that's not my intent.
I've seen some strange things from you, Representative McDonald. I've never seen that before, but so we're at
Fairness,
about the
honesty,
40-minute barrier. So Representative McDonald, I assume you'll be around for questions from members of the committee and a closing statement later on.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. So with that, now we'll move over to those with concerns from the bill. First, Commissioner Ken Peterson from the Department of Labor and Industry. And then next will be Mr. McCarthy from the AFL-CIO. Good afternoon, Commissioner. Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Mr. Chairman, members, my name is Ken Peterson, Commissioner of the Department of Labor and Industry. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to testify today. We appreciate that. We have concerns with this bill because we believe, and this is with all due respect to the people who have testified before, I think there's an honest difference of opinion as to the consequences of the actions here. We think that it makes an unfair financial advantage on some workers. But I do appreciate the efforts made by Representative McDonald and other backers of the bill to compromise on this issue. This version does significantly less damage to workers than the original version. So I want to commend that. At the same time, any measure that allows employers to deduct the value of tips received by their employers in order to lower minimum wages introduces a level of unfairness to workers. And so here are some of our specific concerns. One, we believe it disproportionately impacts women and people in low socioeconomic status. Often people assume that tipped workers are younger than the overall workforce and therefore they're less likely to be the primary wage earners of their households. However, the vast majority of tipped employees are women, at least 25 years of age, and 30% are women of more than over 40 years old. Adding a tip penalty could only exacerbate their limited financial situation. And a second concern is that no other employer group is given the right to leverage their employees' earned wages to lower their minimum wage obligations. This is nobody else has this ability to do it. The bill also changes current law in that it allows employers to be involved in the calculation of tips and requires employees to report their tips owed. Remember, the tip is just a customer's bonus for doing a good job. The tip is not mandatory or anything. It's just a customer's bonus. And up to now, they haven't had to report it to their owners. Obviously, it's seen through credit card receipts and that sort of thing, but it isn't reported. Finally, we have more, this is just from an operational point of view, and I don't want to say this is the most significant objection, but we have more complaints in our department from the restaurant industry than any other. We think there are a lot of complexities in the restaurant industry, and we think that adding this system, the tip credit system, the so-called two-tiered system, would just increase the problems and complexities that restaurant owners already deal with and make it harder for them to comply with the law. So in that sense, we think it's just going to increase more problems. Other than that, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for your testimony, Commissioner. Mr. McCarthy and then Wade Lunenburg from Unite Here Local 17, you're on deck. Welcome to the committee.
Well, good afternoon, Mr. Chair, committee members. Here we are again. My name's Bill McCarthy. I'm president of the Minnesota AFL-CIO. I'm here to testify against House File 4061, the bill penalizing tipped workers. Mr. Chair, my time in the labor movement started with the union now known as Unite Here Local 17. Before I was elected president of that union, I worked as a bartender in Minneapolis. Well, my co-workers and I certainly earned good tips when times were good. When times were good or busy, I can remember many times when we were down to just one or two customers. During those times, tips were hard to come by. While we were fortunate to have benefits of a union contract, many other workers in the industry were not. The fact is, most tipped workers can't earn a living without the security that comes from a full minimum wage. This is a fact that the 1984 legislature understood. They understood that tips are a reward for good service between the customer and worker. They understood that tips shouldn't be an excuse to pay working people less. So in 1984, the legislature repealed the tip penalty that paid workers 20% less than the minimum wage. The legislature knew then that all working people have a right to earn at least a minimum wage. I hope this committee will keep this history in mind when voting for legislation that effectively freezes base pay for tipped workers. I also hope this committee will consider the impact this legislation has on local control. As written, this bill would take away wages from tipped workers in both the city of Minneapolis and future increases at MSP Airport. It would also take away the freedom of any community in our state to raise the minimum wage for people who earn tips. Mr. Chair, I urge this committee to please vote no on House File 4061. Thank you.
Thank you. Wade Lunenburg and then Chris Conroy, you're on deck. Representative Thiessen, you're probably going to ask the same question that I was going to ask, but if you want to go ahead, it's fine.
Well, are we can wait on local control. That is my question about the impact of this on Minneapolis. So we can wait till later.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. So Wade Lunenburg and then Chris Conroy, you're on deck.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, committee members. My name is Wade Lunenburg. I'm the Secretary-Treasurer of the Minnesota State Council of Unite Here Unions and also a member of Local 17 here in the Twin Cities. With 5,000 members in hotels, sports facilities, MSP Airport, our convention centers, and restaurants. Today I'm here to speak in opposition of House File 4061, a bill that takes income from tipped employees by reducing the state of Minnesota's mandated minimum wage, affecting a specific class of worker. It repeals the prohibition on tip credits and disregards important and legal local minimum wage provisions. I've been attached to this industry for 35 years myself, over half of that as a server. My industry's obsession with removing income from employees' pockets has always stumped me. Employers would generally open with remarks by testifying that can be harsh to a harsh business providing hospitality to the consumer with slim profit margins and slim rewards. But this is not an industry in crisis. Instead, it keeps expanding and diversifying into more ways of doing business. It's true that operators in the industry have challenges and things that they can't always control, like increases in rent, food costs, business insurance, and labor in the back of the house. One thing they can count on in their business plan is the guarantee that their chief salespeople are only being paid the minimum wage. Again, the chief salespeople charged with providing good service to the customer that makes the employer successful is only being paid the minimum wage by the employer. The industry wants this concession because they want it. An example of this obsession, and you don't have to go far, is Surly Brewing and its craft brewery and restaurant operation. Surly at best presented a tip pooling procedure to a couple hundred of employers that was illegal. Tip pooling procedures are clearly spelled out in the law. Tips are the property of the servers singularly unless the workers agree to do that. But Surly, after consulting, quote, industry experts and leaders, decided that for them it would be different and illegally mishandled workers' property. Surly, a beneficiary of state legislation, the Surly Law, and scads of public money, land, and freebies, is now paying out $2.5 million to 140 workers. That's how the public and workers were paid back by Surly. And I assure you, members, that many operations quietly changed their policies the following day. Are these operators capable of honestly tracking all of these proposals as written? Can some of these employers be trusted to follow the law? And are workers really making too much money? Anything less than paying the full minimum wage is a sub-minimum wage, and treating potentially tens of thousands of workers this way is wrong. Tips are a contract between the worker and the customer and should remain that way. Finally, I was glad to see the delete all amendment today, removing the potential sexual harassment language that was offered. I'm not alone in being offended by the harassment rider that stated that 3 harassment charges get you in trouble and that the remedy and penalty to the company is to have to pay the full minimum wage. One incident is too many, and the remedy and the penalty were cynical. I thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you for your testimony. And Representative Thiessen stepped out for a moment, but Mr. Weeks, because this is the second testifier who said this, I feel like we kind of should address this issue. 2 testifiers have said that this issue would preempt the local minimum wage in Minneapolis. Can you answer whether this bill does that or not?
Mr. Chair, it doesn't expressly do that. There's two kinds of preemption that can happen under state law. One is express, where the legislature says you can't pass a law like this in a municipality. Another one is implied, which is when the state has regulated an area so intensely that it implies that a municipality can't. There was recently a court decision issued in Minneapolis and Hennepin County that Minneapolis's $15 wage ordinance, at least at the district court level, was upheld as not being impliedly preempted by current state law. This might change that analysis some, as it's a little more specific, but it certainly doesn't definitely preempt local ordinances.
Okay. Maybe I'll ask Representative McDonald, is it your intent, while there's this open litigation, that this language would preempt the local municipal minimum wages that have been going into effect?
Mr. Chair, it is not.
Thank you. The next testifier on the list is Tom Diamond and Lee Samuelson. You're on deck. Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed to the testimony.
Thank you. Tom Diamond, St. Paul, Minnesota. I would like to speak to Subdivision 2 and Subdivision 3, which would be impacted by this legislation. These are very important worker protections that should be preserved. Quite simply, Subdivision 2 states, gratuities not applied. No employer may directly or indirectly credit, apply, or utilize gratuities towards payment of the minimum wage set by this section or federal law. Subdivision 3, sharing of gratuities. For the purpose of this chapter, any gratuity received by an employer or deposited in or about a place of business for personal services rendered by an employee is the sole property of the employer. It is absolutely a must that these are protected. There should not be a sub-minimum wage. There should not be a wage penalty. The employer should not be reaching into the pocket of the worker and taking their tips out of their pocket to pay them or to pay themselves. There's been testimony today about the fear of losing jobs or that we will lose Super Bowls, we will lose businesses. Those are very real fears, and I appreciate that very much. If this was an entirely new thing, that might hold some water. But we know better. Minnesota is a leader on getting rid of the tip penalty. I worked as a committee administrator for the state Senate for Senator Conrad Vega, who was the chief author of getting rid of the tip penalty. This is over 30 years ago. We heard the same testimony at that time, that businesses will be closing, people will be losing jobs, we won't get these big events, we'll be penalized. In fact, our economy is healthier or healthier than our surrounding states. Our economy has done extremely well with this legislation in place protecting people's wages. Workers have not only gotten their minimum wage, they have gotten their tips and get to keep their tips. And the jobs are here. So we know, forget these studies, we know as a fact in Minnesota that this works. And states like New York are looking very seriously at what Minnesota's experience is and looking at consideration. If you want to know the real fear that workers should have about your tips and making a fair wage, you should know that this state legislation that's in here protects your wages. If this is removed, currently the Trump administration is working to change the tip provisions nationally, which would allow your employer not just to use it to pay some minimum wage, but actually to take all your tips from you. That is what is being considered in the Labor Department in the federal government at this time. You remove these protections, you lose your tips. So what I just really want to say is that we currently have protections that have worked, unlike Wisconsin, which was mentioned earlier, who has suffered mightily in their economy and jobs because of removing protections for workers. Minnesota has thrived with these protections in place, and the workers in Minnesota get a better wage and better job protections than elsewhere. Thank you.
Representative Thiessen, when you stepped up for just a brief second, I think I asked the question you wanted to ask, but I'll give you a chance just to, if I was mistaken in asking about whether this applied to municipal minimum wages, but Representative Thiessen.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, from what I understand, the answer was it would be the same issue as what it would be a preemption issue. Nothing explicit is in the bill, but that so basically, Minneapolis, if it's 15 in Minneapolis, they would still not allow for a tip credit under the current proposal in Minneapolis.
Correct. Well, again, unless
subject to go to court.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Basically, it's the same way as the current minimum wage. So,
Okay,
thank
thanks.
you. Lee Samuelson. Is Lee Samuelson here? No? Okay, so then next, Molly Thule.
Yep.
Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed with the testimony.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and committee members. My name is Molly Thule, and I actually live down in Lonsdale, Minnesota. I'm here today to talk to you about the House Bill 4061. I have been in the service industry for 20 years, and I've worked at the Minneapolis airport for 18 of those years. I'm a single mom of 2 kids. I work full-time, go to school full-time, and I'm still an active participant in all of my children's activities. Being a server allowed me to work when my kids were young and still be home with them, raising them myself. As they grew, I was able to work more, and now I am back in school to start a new career for myself to better me and them. Being a server has allowed me to raise my kids in a middle-class home. I own my own home, I drive a decent car, and I even have student loans that I am paying back. There are thousands more out there just like me. If you add the tip penalty here in Minnesota, you will be taken away from my family as well as other families just like mine. My wage, my minimum wage, pay all my taxes, and my tips are what I actually live on. Minnesota has always been a state that has taken care of the middle-class people. What I'm asking is that you don't make more of us a low class. I take pride in what I do, and I earn my wages to provide for my family. I thank you for your time.
Thank you for your testimony. Shirley Ersted, and then Danny, is it Schwartzman? Danny, are you here? If you could just be on deck. Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you. I'm Shirley Ersted. I live in St. Paul, and I've worked in minimum wage jobs in the past, and I have friends and family who work in minimum wage jobs now. I have 3 children in their 20s, and I understand the challenges of minimum wage jobs. I encourage the committee to stand with workers in support of a livable minimum wage without any carve-outs. Tips should not be counted as wages for purposes of a minimum wage. A substandard minimum wage would be a step backward for Minnesota. As you've heard, for over 30 years, Minnesota has been a national leader in protecting workers from a tip penalty. Worker protections should not be rolled back. State law clearly states that a gratuity received by an employee is the sole property of the employee. 30 years ago, the legislature was told that allowing employees to keep the tips they received would be the end of restaurants and hotels in Minnesota. The claim was wrong then, and it is wrong today. Compare the health of our Minnesota economy to that of Wisconsin, where they have repealed worker protections. There is clear evidence that Minnesota's efforts to protect workers is not only good for workers, but also provides strong economic benefits for our economy. Many tip workers are women and people of color. They work in bars, restaurants, and hotel housekeeping. The work environment and vulnerable position that many workers find themselves in can make it difficult for them to seek help regarding discrimination or abuse. As the mother of 3 daughters, I am very concerned about these issues. Repealing employees' rights to the tips they receive is fraught with injustice for vulnerable workers. The Minnesota legislature should proudly retain workers' protections. We should honor and support these hardworking individuals who are working to support themselves and their families. If some of them are fortunate enough to work in a position where they can make more than minimum wage, we should not punish, but rather celebrate that. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Danny Schwartzman and Eli Edelson-Stein. Eli, are you here? If you could come down, you'll be the next testifier. Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed with the testimony.
Thank you. My name is Danny Schwartzman. I own Common Roots Cafe in Minneapolis, and I appreciate the opportunity to testify before all of you. Common Roots opened in 2007. Since then, for the past 10 years, I've been running a business that pays workers a fair wage, and I believe that's a practice that is really important and one which I've been able to do and been able to thrive while doing it. I'm here today because I believe that everyone should get paid a fair wage. I believe that our current system, which has one minimum wage, works, and I believe it's ethically solid. I believe that everyone should have the opportunity to earn a living and advance and not depend on the gratuity of their customers to be able to make ends meet. And I think that our policy, through such a basic thing as a minimum wage, should be used to ensure that everyone is on that fair level playing field. I also think that it's important that government play a role in setting those parameters, and by having one fair wage, as we've had for the entire time I've been open as a business and long before that, we've had an ability for all businesses to know that we're all working under the same standards, and that tips don't skew how people get paid from a business owner's perspective. Yes, tips make up a large portion of many service industry people's wages, but from a business perspective, everyone's paid on the same level playing field. Workers don't have to worry about the accounting that may or may not be accurate that business owners take with their tips generally, and customers know that everyone's paid fairly and simply, and it works. Since we've had a fair wage, we had a thriving restaurant scene, even in Minneapolis, with a very scary increase in wages, which I support, but that many people are fearful of. We still have an expanding restaurant scene. People still go to work. Businesses still expand. We still have tourism. We still have Super Bowls. These kinds of things happen. And these things, I think, are part of what makes Minneapolis great and what makes Minnesota great. At the same time, the fears that servers have expressed, some servers today, I think are very real. These are not to be diminished. I think that tips skew the economics a lot and do weird things. And the issue of equity in restaurants is a big one. I think there are a lot of restaurants where people in the kitchen are not making a fair wage relative to the servers. But the solution to that is not to make the servers get paid less. I just simply don't understand this argument. Because while there are pressures that are making it very challenging for restaurant owners to make ends meet, this is a very challenging industry. People make very, very low margins. Having a tip credit merely takes away wages from the employees and gives them to the owners with no guarantee that then goes anywhere that we want it to. There's no guarantee that goes to the kitchen staff that might be overdue for a raise. There's no guarantee that anything good happens from this policy. And regardless of whether or not a tip credit is introduced, the reality will still exist that this is a very, very challenging industry with very low margins. It will continue to have low margins. Nothing new will change from this. There will still be pressure to replace servers with iPads. That will still be a fear that people will stir up. And you know what? No one's really going to replace them with iPads at high-end restaurants because people want servers. And they'll want servers whether or not we have this program. We see in neighboring states that this is not a solution. We see in Minnesota, we have a robust service industry. We have a wonderful dining scene. We will continue to have it. And I'd like to see that wonderful dining scene also has people treated fairly with fair wages and not complicated systems that are solving a problem that doesn't exist. Thank you.
Thank you. Next testifier, come forward, please. Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed with the testimony.
Thanks for the welcome. My name is Eli Edelson-Stein. I was born and raised in Minneapolis and have been working in restaurants for the past over 10 years now. I've worked as a dishwasher, a line cook, food runner, server, and bartender. Most of the positions that I've worked in the past 10 years have been tipped positions. This has become a career that I love and an industry with the workers in it that I really care about. I'm speaking against any form of a tip penalty in our state. Please do not garnish my wage and the wages of hardworking Minnesotans to support an already burgeoning industry in this state. Right now, we have one fair wage for all workers in Minnesota. We're an example to the rest of the country, showing that you can build a thriving industry with higher wages for all workers. Our growth rate in employment and sales either match or top those of neighboring states with dramatically lower wages for tip workers. Lowering the wage doesn't increase our employment, and it doesn't do good by our industry. We don't need below poverty wages for our industry and the institutions to grow. The data shows our strength, and so do our workers. A fair wage for all workers make it a better industry to work in. It makes it a place that we can build a career. Freezing my wage at a sub-minimum wage debilitates my ability to keep up with the rising costs of living. In states with a two-tiered system, tipped workers are far more likely to live in poverty, access public assistance at a cost to the state, experience sexual harassment in the workplace from customers and staff, and wage theft from their employers. This is true not only in the worst cases, the 213 states like Wisconsin, but it is also true in states with higher two-tiered systems. Across the board, tipped workers bring home less money to pay bills, rent, student debt, childcare, mortgages in the states with any kind of tip penalty. Even for the highest tipped workers in our industry, which I believe many of the folks here that are speaking represent, we are offered benefits at rates far below other private sector workers. So our wage we really depend on. In states with a sub-minimum wage for tipped workers, we see job responsibilities that would normally be for back of house, i.e. dishwashers, cooks. We see those migrate to the lower paid tipped workers as a cost-saving mechanism in a business. So over time, we see back of house hours cut, and hours for tipped workers increase because it comes at a lesser cost to the business. That's not good for any worker in our industry. I have a friend that just moved up here from Austin. She's a server and her husband is a bartender. She said that in Austin, which pays a far sub-minimum wage, she was working as the earliest on and the last cut long after dishwashers left. She was often cleaning dishes and mopping floors in the kitchen, all while being paid this lower minimum wage. This hurts workers. In Minnesota, 70% of tipped workers are women, already earning 23 less than their tipped male counterparts. A tip penalty would lower the wages of a majority female workforce. This is an attack on working women, and introducing any kind of tip penalty would be, in effect, institutionalizing a gender pay gap in this state. Finally, this would open the door to all kinds of wage theft that cannot exist, that does not exist here right now. Nationally, the restaurant industry has some of the highest rates of wage violations. In 2014, the Department of Labor did a sweep showing that 84% of restaurants in this country were non-compliant in wage violations. That had over 1,000 tipped wage violations and over $5 million in back wages. That was in 1 year. It's a notoriously hard system to enforce, and much of the day-to-day onus falls on workers. We see nationally that a sub-minimum wage system opens the door to wage theft and higher rates of litigation for restaurants. So if you choose to lower my wage, I hope that you also choose to pay for my lawyer. Thanks for the giggles. Minnesota is a shining example for workers all over the country fighting to get out of sub-minimum wages. Right now, there's a ballot initiative in Michigan. DC is looking at one. The state of New York is as well. Workers in states that have a sub-minimum wage are fighting to get out, and we in Minnesota have shown for the last 30 years that we can build a thriving business better than our neighbors on fair wages. That's the end of my prepared comments, but I do want to address a couple things that I heard come up. I want to acknowledge that in our industry right now, there's a lot of fear, and that there is this growing trend towards service charges. And I think that for those of us that have built our lives on this, the fear is real. And I think that all of us on both sides of this issue that are presenting from inside of this industry really care. But I don't think that it's a coincidence that the Minnesota Restaurant Association is running point for a group of workers whose fears have been stoked about automation, all these things that Wade brought up that are going to happen in our industry anyways. I think that if you want to protect workers, you're not going to cut our wages. You're going to talk about creating legislation that protects workers inside of service charges, right? Right now, a business can take a service charge, a 20% service charge off the bill, and they keep it, and there's no transparency. Think about protecting workers inside of that. Don't garnish my wages. I also want to acknowledge that there's a lot of doom and gloom around this issue. And right now, restaurants are the fastest growing industry in our country. In Minnesota, restaurants employ 9% of the workforce, and the Minnesota Restaurant Association has projected an 8.5% growth by 2020 something. Sorry, I can't remember that number off the top of my head. We're strong right now, and it's a great place to work. And I want to keep it that way, and I hope that you'll listen to a lot of folks broadly around this, but come down on the right side of this issue. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for your testimony. The testifier, do you have a copy of the bill?
Yes, I have the latest delete all.
Yes. I just want to make sure you have it, because I'm going to have a follow-up question for you later, but I want to get through all the testimony, so just...
I'll stick around for you.
Thank you, appreciate it. Last testifier we have signed up is Dawson, is it Kimyon? Yep. Is there any other members of the public who wish to testify with opposition or concerns to the bill? If you just go ahead and line up behind the, back there. And right now, we got about 10 minutes left until opposition time runs out. Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Dawson Kimyon. I'll keep my comments brief. I would encourage every member of this committee to be skeptical of any system that creates a power dynamic in which the performance of servers is a factor in an employer's bottom line. In other words, if servers, based on their performance, if that translates to whether or not the employer has to make up the difference between whatever they're taking in tips and the minimum wage, you're setting the stage for a system full of waste, fraud, and abuse. I think that this is borne out nationally, and I also would like to say that I think one should consider the stories of folks on both sides of this issue that have come up and told their stories about the prosperity that they have encountered in the restaurant industry given the current system, and advise you all that what you're proposing right now is to change that system. And it sort of is reminiscent of, I think, a national trend that we've seen with other issues like Medicaid, Medicare, where the logic has been, well, we love these things so much that we have to cut them in order to keep them. And I don't think that that has any bearing on reality or the actual evidence that we've seen. The last thing that I want to say before I turn it over here is that, I think there's a clear kind of misaligned incentive here. We've got folks on one side of an issue that are essentially being asked to come forward and speak in favor of their own wages being cut. And I think that there's a lot of fear that goes into that, and I understand that, but also would like to encourage people to take a look at the actual evidence in states where we've done this and pose this legislation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next testifier, please come forward. Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed with the testimony.
Thank you. My name is Desiree King. I'm a 33-year employee at an upscale property. I'm a little disturbed by some of the things I've heard today. First of all, I'm not paid to speak, and I didn't plan to speak, and I don't like to speak in front of groups like this. So I feel a little bit motivated, though. All of us here are the people who bring you the weekend, your holidays. We take care of you in times of sadness and grief, and we are proud to do it. We look forward to seeing you when you come in as a repeat guest. We know you and your families. We've seen your children grow up, and this is really important for us to be there for you in the good times and the bad times. And after 33 years, I have never received an increase in my wages from my employer unless it's been mandated. Now, I don't think anyone can say they've never received an increase from their employer when they've worked for someone for 33 years. The tips that I receive are not wages. They are a thank you for a job well done. They are gifts, and they are expressions of gratitude for being there when it's 12:30 in the morning, when it's 6:30 in the morning, when it's Christmas, and when you've just said goodbye to a loved one and you're having a memorial luncheon. I think that to say that we as a group of people, because we earn tips, are not valuable enough to make the minimum wage is insulting, and we are worth more than that. It's tragic in my mind that we sit here and have to defend the right to make a minimum wage because we earn tips. It just shouldn't be a discussion that happens. And I sat here 30 years ago as a brand new employee in this industry in front of a committee and said, I'm a young single mom and I want to be able to do better for my kids. And I was able to. I was able to raise them without public assistance. They are grown, and when I leave this industry in a few years, I want to leave it a job that has been as good to me as it will be for them. It just can't. This just seems so backwards. And I hope that we look at these jobs as careers and we esteem them and we keep our state a strong voice in this discussion and that we don't fall to the pressures that we see happening in this country. Let's keep it strong and let's keep it proud.
Thank you. Next testifier, please come forward. Please state your name for the record and proceed with the testimony.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. My name is Jill Gagan. I worked a two-tier system. That's how long I've been in this business. I still am in this business. I worked when you didn't have to pay me the $3.05 minimum wage. I got to be the hostess, the busser, the dishwasher, and the waitress for $2.12 an hour. Minimum wage for waitresses, $2.22. Where's that dime? Where'd the dime go? Ironically, 1984, you repealed that, and I went up, and I matched everyone who I was working with. I am a professional. I'm 100% a professional. Ironically, 1984, I was carrying my daughter. She is now a server. She is a homeowner. She has 2 children. She pays her taxes. She takes care of her own. I was given the opportunity because of this profession to have the flexible schedule I needed, my family needed. To take my mother home, to let her die in her own bed, to be able to take my parents to their proper medical care, and yet not lose money. And the reason I could do that was because I could go ask a coworker if I could work for them, and they could have off a shift that they may want. So I didn't have to go backwards to take care of my family, growing up or letting go. My dad's 90. We're still looking out for him. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. This is protection. What we have is protection. What you're asking for, I have lived it. Believe me, you don't want it. I'm not trying to scare anybody. I'm just stating the facts. I was there. I walked it. I did it. There's a reason I am still a professional. There's a reason. There's numerous reasons. And obviously, because I am still in this business and a 21-year employee at the airport, it's not like I hop around. The reason I stay is because I love it. Is because what I give to it, I get back. No one takes away from me anymore. Before my daughter was born, before 1984, I had already worked 6 different places. Why? Why? Because of the abuse and the wage theft. Broke a cup, took it out of your check. Somebody walked out on the bill, took it out of your check. And I worked for corporations and I worked for mom and pops. I worked for bowling alleys. I've been sexually harassed. Maybe not so much these days, but that's okay too. Anyway, I appreciate the time. Please consider this seriously. Minnesota is a leader. Why would we ever go back to 1978? Clothes sucked.
Are there any other members of the public who wish to testify with concerns or opposition to the bill? If not, then we'll assume the opponents want to return back their unused time. If Ms. Schellenberg could come back down. While I don't think it's the chair's job to be the instant fact checker, I do want to make sure there's a couple things, regardless of people's positions on the issue, that we can agree on. Number one, the state of Minnesota does not have one uniform minimum wage. We don't have that right now. We take into account days, length of employment, the age of the employee, the size of the business, the training wage. There's, in fact, a nice little carve-out for northeastern Minnesota for a specific business that has to pay us a lower minimum wage, so we do not have that. Second of all is that when you look at the economic data, it is true that the state of Minnesota has higher incomes than each of our neighboring states that have a tip credit. It is also true that Minnesota has a higher unemployment rate than each of the neighboring states around us. Whether that's attributable to the tip credit or not, those are just what the data is. Next is that I'm hearing I've heard discussion about people mentioning that they would be, if they were a two-tiered minimum wage, they would work at a lower level in an untipped role. I would just point testifiers both for and against the bill to lines 4.26 and 4.27 for large employers and lines 4.31 and 4.32. If that situation were to arise, the person would still maintain the current minimum wage status. A person would have to make a minimum of $12 an hour as a small employer, for a small employer, and a minimum of $14 for a large employer. It would simply not, there would be no economic cost to the worker whatsoever if they were put into that role. Finally, someone pointed out, they said that tips are not wages, they're gifts. I'm sure this is news to the employers of the state of Minnesota who are paying payroll taxes on these gifts on a weekly basis. Please, no displays of public demonstration, even if you agree with me. With that, Ms. Schellenberg, I do want to talk about this issue of automation. And we are seeing, not only in Minnesota, but across the country, as the minimum wages rise, there is an economic incentive for businesses to get rid of those jobs. Clearly, it's something anyone who's been to the airport has seen it. Mm-hmm. Anyone who's been to Red Robin or Olive Garden, has seen this. And it's not like it's just happening in Minnesota with our higher minimum wages. We are seeing these in other states. Outside of the cost differential that we have in front of us, talk about what things, in your eyes as an employee, that you are seeing kind of make business, this is not the determining factor, right? But what are the things that are nudging employers over to this to reduce wait staff, and what is the consequence to the service industry?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. When it comes to automation specifically, we see different efficiencies, different efficient models as cost of goods rise, as labor rises. The main concern is that it would be incredibly cost effective to essentially have a few glorified food runners and iPads at each table. The software is the most expensive piece of putting iPads at each table. Any business could take out a loan for $50,000, put a tablet at every table, and just have a food runner and somebody touching a table, which would reduce staff by 80% and upward, costing a lot of jobs. I don't think that this would necessarily be a consequence to the majority of restaurants, but certainly a portion of restaurants, especially restaurants that are not profitable above the general 5%, which is typically the top tier of profit margins for full service restaurants. This cost, I don't know if I mentioned it already, is about $50,000. The cost of the minimum wage increase in Minneapolis in particular that we're talking about doing without a tip credit is more than $10,000 per employee increase, per full-time employee. So we're talking about reducing 5 positions to cover the cost of that iPad system in less than a year.
And Ms. Schellenberg, I think some people make the mistake of thinking that all restaurants are the same. And obviously, if we think back to our own situations, there's a difference between table service and counter service. Mm-hmm. Can you talk about what that means for the number of if you're advocating for tipped employees, if a restaurant transitions to counter service from table service, what does that mean for tipped employees?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I actually heard one of our opposition talk about that there's no guarantee that good things will happen with the two-tier system, and that their restaurant has been able to do a one fair wage system since they opened. They are a counter service restaurant, and counter service restaurants have a situation where you order at the counter, they run the food out to you, and you clear your own table. You get your own water, things of that nature. These models are drastically different from full-service restaurants insofar as labor requirements. If most restaurants, let's talk about one restaurant. If one restaurant switches from full-service model to counter-service model, that's going to be an incredible loss in jobs and a very huge shift in labor numbers.
So given your expertise in this industry, who tends to make more money, those who work in the counter service industry or those who are tipped employees?
The majority of our income as tipped employees comes from tips. The majority of a counter service employee's wage comes from their hourly wage.
And again, given your
So great that a tipped worker in a full-service restaurant makes much more generally
and again,
than a
given,
counter service employee.
given your expertise in this area, does not having this provision in law provide an incentive for businesses to transfer to counter service modeling?
It absolutely does. If I owned a restaurant and my labor was going to increase by 25% overnight, depending on how a wage increase happens, this is a measure that would greatly reduce the cost. This is actually a trend that's happening in California right now with their labor increases.
So my final question for you then is that if someone's advocating for higher wages for restaurant employees, why would someone defend an infrastructure that gives an incentive to convert from tipped employees to counter service modeling?
I do not know the answer to that question. I can't imagine why anyone would.
Okay. Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Representative Sundin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've got a question. I guess I would pose it to Mr. Weeks or maybe the commissioner regarding the two tiers of the bill. I'm just wondering if you were a server, would you much rather work for a large employer rather than a small employer based on their paycheck at the end of the week?
Is that, you want Commissioner Peterson to come down and answer that?
Take your pick. Mr. Weeks, if you can't.
Well, it's probably not a question for nonpartisan staff, but if you want to ask someone else, you can, but we can't.
Okay, yeah, I'd like to ask the commissioner that then.
Commissioner Peterson, if you come down. He looks enthusiastic to be coming down, I might add, Representative Sundin. If you could just restate your question for the commissioner as he's coming down.
But my question would be if you were a server, would you much rather work for a large employer or a small employer based on your salary at the end of the week?
If you could restate your name for the record and proceed with the answer.
Ken Peterson, Commissioner of the Department of Labor and Industry, Mr. Chair, members, Representative Sundin. Under this, is your question under this bill or current?
Under the proposed bill.
Commissioner
Thank you.
Peterson.
You'd want to work where you earn the most money. Generally, most of us would, and that would be in the larger restaurant.
Representative Sundin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, then to the author, I'm just wondering if he could answer, which employer is going to reward their employee the best financially, the large employer or the small employer?
Representative McDonald.
Mr. Chairman, would the good representative repeat his question, please?
Representative Sundin.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. If you were a server, would you rather work for a large employer or a small employer under the provisions of this bill?
Representative McDonald.
Mr. Chairman, if I was a server, I would work for either both a large and or a small business. Whatever's closest to my home.
Representative Sundin, we should point out that the current minimum wage has a difference in level between larger and smaller employees. So opposing this bill and that provision based on its current law would be a unique argument, but Representative Sundin.
Thank you. My concern is, are we further exacerbating the situation where a large employer has an advantage because they can supposedly pay more? I'm worried about the mom and pop restaurants, maybe a tavern down in a small town, and they're operating just fine with their tipped employees. And I'm just wondering if this is going to change the dynamic in that town. Say if a larger employer came in and could actually raid the employee base. I know we've got a shortage of workers in this field in the state of Minnesota, and I'm just wondering if this is going to exacerbate the situation for a small employer. Anyone?
Yeah, Representative McDonald, do you want to respond to that or we move to the next question?
Well, I'll just respond, Mr. Chairman, by saying it's the current law as of today, regardless of the bill in front of you. So whether or not it would take employees away from one business to the other because they're large or small, I don't think that that would be the case, no.
Representative Sundin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just fear for the employees that are working for a restaurant of a lesser god here. So,
okay.
Thank you.
Representative Baker.
Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Representative McDonald, for bringing this forward. As a restaurant owner myself, and I have a large restaurant, compared to the status of a large restaurant as defined in the Department of Revenue. These folks that came in here today, the Restaurant Workers of America, are doing us a great favor by talking about this, because if this continues the way it is going now, our full-service restaurants won't exist in 10 years. And I say that only because I've been very proud to own a restaurant with my wife for the last 15 years, and we have done well. I don't drive a fancy car. I plowed snow all weekend, and that's kind of how we'd make this thing work. In fact, we had to close Saturday and Sunday because of the snow and Wilmer. My concern with this is that folks that think for some reason to continue with this model of increases automatically with minimum wages, and to think that the back of the house are going to do just fine the way it is not the case. The back of the house are getting really the short end of the stick. And in the last 12 months, I have given more raises than ever before in the back of the house just to hang on to them. And our servers have nothing without the back of the house. They don't have a good meal that comes out. They don't have clean dishes that come out. And it just concerns me that as Minnesota employers, our industry that's very finely defined as a full-service restaurant is going to be taken over by limited service restaurants, the folks that go up to the counter and order that way. As a restaurant owner, the two things, if you want to run a restaurant someday, folks, let me know how you want to do this, because, and I've done this, but you've got to have about in my industry, a full service, all Americana, pasta, steaks, burgers. I do weddings and things. We have to have an average food cost of about 35%. And that's right about at the top. My labor costs are about 35 to 36%. The last 12 months, I cannot get it below 40%, my labor cost. And I'm trying to think of everything I can do to bring it down. Now, largely it's because of minimum wages have gone up. And also, my back of the house have gone up much more than that to keep up with the loss of good employees. My fear is I can't keep raising my prices to make up for the shortfall of to bring my food cost or my labor costs down. And if I don't get my cost of food and my labor costs below 75%, I will not have money to pay rent, pay my electric bills, to do my renovations, because when I as the owner do renovations, our business goes up and our servers and our back of the house get rewarded with more hours and more money. It's a very simple model that if we do not have a robust full-service industry in the next 10 years, and if we don't start talking about this kind of stuff and quit using language like tip penalties, nobody is penalized with a tip. I am shocked that that is even still used in our vocabulary. In fact, I'm one of the few employers in a restaurant industry that signs my checks every 2 weeks for my employees. And because of the new POS systems, the point of sale stuff, you key it all in. Most people today are tipping with credit cards. Not a lot of cash is done anymore with tipping. So our POS system tracks every tip. At the end of the night, our servers, our bartenders go home with cash out of my till that I supply for them, so that every day they go home, but I still have to wait about 3-4 days to get my money in my account from the credit card servers, the processors. But what we do with that is we make sure that they go home with that cash in their pocket. And we want to make sure that as the system continues to evolve, going back to my payrolls every 2 weeks. I lost track, sorry about that. But I put on, I'm going to call Susie my server and Ben my bartender, for example. I put on there every 2 weeks what their average wage is. So when they go home, my computer doesn't do that, so I have to actually hand do it. But I can see my total tips paid, and I can see their wage, which is the $9.65 minimum wage. I put them together and add it up. And most of the time, the least amount I have had in the last, I bet you, year has been $18 an hour for my lunch servers. And at nighttime, I've got $35 to $40 an hour. And I am so proud to put that on there. Congratulations, Susie, $37.52 an hour this pay period. And next one might be a little higher. Next one might be a little bit lower. But they make really good money. And I'm really proud that these employees that work sometimes 3-4 days a week, they don't work full-time. They may have another full-time job. These are a lot of folks that have been home all day, and maybe their spouse is working, and then they come in and work 3-4 days to get a little break from the family. It's a good process. It's a good program. And these folks make really good money, and I have no turnover because they make really good money. But if we don't start talking about this in the next 10 years, we're going to have problems. So thank you, Representative McDonald, for bringing this forward. And again, the Restaurant Workers of America should have been here 10 years ago. Because again, and thank you for organizing your voice. You have a voice like others have a voice too. Nobody wants to listen to a restaurant owner. You think that I just live in this big house on a big lake and I don't have to work. That is so not true. And thank you for standing up for your employers. You can't do this without them. And we can't do this without you. So thank you all for being in the restaurant industry. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, so we are running low on time, but just really quickly here, we've got Representative West, New, Make, Wade, and Barr. So Representative West.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a question for Mr. Lunenburg. Wade Lunenburg.
Wade Lumberg from Unite Here. Representative West.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Lunenburg, are you aware of any establishment where the tipped employees make less than $12 an hour in combined wages?
Please restate your name for the record and proceed to testimony.
Wade Lunenburg with Unite Here. No, I can't say I am.
Representative West.
In my experience, a server made more than me when I was working as a legislative assistant, so.
Okay. Representative New.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My first question is perhaps for Mr. Weeks. So the current minimum wage is $9.65 an hour. Is that for large employers? What is the current minimum wage for small employers?
Mr. Weeks.
Mr. Chair, Representative New, $7.80 as of January 1st of this year.
Representative New.
Okay, so I just want to clarify then that if this law was passed, no one would have a pay cut based on current standards. If they were currently receiving minimum wage plus tips, moving forward, they would receive this same wage plus tips.
Mr. Weeks.
Mr. Chair, Representative New, that's right. The standard minimum wage is scheduled to increase for inflation every year. The base wage under the bill would not increase for inflation.
Sure.
Representative New.
Sure, but no one would receive a pay cut currently. Okay, I probably to Representative McDonald. My next question is, Commissioner Peterson talked about complexity for owners. My question to you is, we heard from one owner who sort of opposed this seemingly for ideological reasons. My question is, have you heard any opposition to this bill from owners concerned about the complexity that they'll be dealing with?
Representative McDonald.
Mr. Chairman, no, I have not.
Representative New.
Excellent. Thank you.
Representative McDonald, does this require employees to pay the employers to pay the differentiated wage?
It does not.
Okay. Representative Make-Wade, then Barr, then Thiessen. Representative Make-Wade.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative McDonald, do you think tipped workers make too much money?
Representative McDonald.
Representative McQuaid, Mr. Chairman, no, I do not.
Representative Make-Wade.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So then why freeze their wages at the base wage at what it is right now?
Representative McDonald.
Mr. Chairman, Representative McQuaid, we are trying to, this isn't just about the author, it's about many in this room. Thousands have signed the petition of Jennifer's cause and gotten active in this movement. So it is not about freezing people's wages, it's about preserving their jobs, preserving their way of life. Representative Baker said it very passionately as a owner of a restaurant. It's about preserving their businesses as well. My sister, my niece, many family members and friends are waitresses and servers. So it's about preserving their business, their quality of life as well.
Representative McQuaid.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, except it's not about preserving, it's about changing it, right? Because you want to make sure that as other people's wages go up according to inflation, which this actually doesn't even match the earlier part where it's up to 2.5% or whatever the commissioner determines. Yours is only 2%. It's about preserving it right now. And one of the other things this committee does is housing. And so when people sit at that testifying table and they talk about the lack of affordable housing, and a lot of it has to do with because wages haven't gone up in a really long time, that's because we're not paying people more. And then you bring a bill in to freeze the wages of tipped workers at what they are right now, so that the only thing that can make their wages go up are tips. And Representative Baker gave a great example. The system was working really well for his folks. They're making money. A lot of people got up and said they were able to buy houses and send their kids to college. This would not do that any longer. Automation is coming, and I understand that, and it's really scary. But freezing wages for people who are working in tip jobs is not going to save our economy. It's not going to save these people, because then all that's going to happen is we're going to have more people coming back saying, our apartments aren't affordable. We can't buy houses. We can't afford to send our kids to college. The health care that we have to pay for out of our wages, because many tipped workers do that, they can't afford that too. And so I don't see how this is not just starting a larger cycle of having more people come back and saying that the job that they have doesn't pay them enough to live. I have other questions for you, but since we have other folks waiting, I'll let that go.
Thank you. Ms. Schellenberg testified that those who have tipped wages tend to have higher wages than those who work in the counter service industry. Representative McQuaid, do you dispute that or do you agree with that?
Mr. Chair, I'm not her. I'm not going to dispute what she's saying.
I'm not asking, so you agree with her or disagree with her? Representative McQuaid.
I would not have the information to know that.
Okay. Ms. Schellenberg testified that current law gives a regulatory preference to the counter service industry over a table service employee. Would you agree with that or dispute that?
I would have no reason to dispute it.
Okay. So given that, if the conversation is about wages employees make, which is what you said and what Representative McDonald said, I don't understand why anyone would defend a regulatory preference for a lower wage employer. Explain that to me.
Mr. Chair, I don't know why someone would come in and defend freezing the wages of tipped workers, because what we hear so often is that people are not making enough money to live. We see that borne out over and over and over again. Wages are not going up, and this is a prime example of why, is when we try to freeze the wages of people who are working in jobs where they rely on tips that don't always come in. This is how we set up inequities. This is exactly how we do it.
So how would paying them less help them?
Good question. How would paying them less help them?
Well, that's why these men and women in the industry are here. Because if you wipe out tipped employees and convert them to counter service jobs, they're going to make less money.
Mr. Chair,
Representative McQuaid.
we can debate over and over again about whether restaurants will continue to exist in 10 years or not because of automation. Paying people enough to live is not the thing that's going to wipe out restaurants. Representative Baker gave a great example about how well his restaurant is doing and how well his employees are doing with the current model we have right now.
Representative Barr and then Thiessen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This question probably is for Mr. Weeks. Could you tell me the tax treatment of wage or tax treatment of tips under current law, and what I don't see how this would there would be any tax change, and what exactly all of the things when you roll in when tips are rolled in, like Representative Baker was saying, it's PO on the point of sale or the POS. It shows all the tips, so you have to report all of that as income. How much other expenses are included to the employer that never show up on a check or never show up as visible, like unemployment insurance, Social Security, employer half of Social Security, Medicare, all of the rest of that? Could you talk to that a little bit?
Representative Barr, can you just restate the question a little bit tighter, just so we can give Mr. Weeks a kind of like a little tighter question? If you could say it into the mic. Just restate your question, just maybe a little bit tighter so we can focus on it.
Could Mr. Weeks please explain the difference in the tax treatment for tips under current law and under this bill, if there is any difference, and what current law, if there is no difference, what current law says how the state treats tips?
Mr. Weeks, you got that? Mr. Weeks.
Chair Garofalo, Representative Barr. So all tips are considered income under federal tax law, and so they're treated like income from any other source. So payroll taxes are taken out of them, and the tipped employee has to pay income taxes on those tips.
So Social Security on both sides, Medicare. Okay. Representative Barr.
Mr. Chair, if we really wanted, I would think that maybe allowing tipped employees to be lower, maybe we should exempt all of the tips from all of the rest of the taxability of that income as well.
Sounds that would be the jurisdiction of the Tax Committee, Representative Barr, and I certainly, Representative Barr.
Mr. Chair, as we've heard a lot of these people, a tax is not a wage, it's a gift. So if it's a gift, why are we taxing it?
Yeah, well, because it's a wage, Representative Barr, that's why. Representative Thiessen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple things. First, and I'm sorry, again, I was out of the room, but this may have been asked, but Representative McDonald, a question for you. So your understanding of this bill is that if a local jurisdiction were to pass a higher minimum wage and not include a tip credit, they would be able to do this and this bill wouldn't preempt that. That's your understanding of how this bill works.
Representative McDonald.
Mr. Chair, that is correct.
Representative Thiessen.
Thanks. So, and then maybe for the other, I'm sorry.
Schellenberger.
Thank you. Yes, for the other testifier. So on the counter service versus the full service, owners of restaurants choose to do counter service versus, or maybe more importantly, customers would choose to go to a counter service versus a table service for reasons that have nothing to do with how much those workers are being paid. I mean, it's a very different experience, a very different consumer experience. And if you're going to open a restaurant that's going to serve the kind of table service type of situation, that's very different than attracting a clientele that may want to come in, or probably the same people at different times for the counter service. Would that be correct?
Ms. Schellenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Representative. Yes, I would say that's absolutely correct. Both models serve people for different purposes in different environments, often different needs for expedited consumption.
Representative Thiessen.
Thank you. And I think the owner of Common Roots, he actually has a counter service, and maybe we could just ask him the reason he opened a counter service as opposed to a full table service.
You could invite him down. It's up to him. We can't subpoena people yet. So I know I have subpoena authority. We don't want the public to know that, Adam. So welcome to the committee. Please restate your name for the record, and then if you need the question, ask it again.
No, I'm good. It's Danny Schwartzman from Common Roots. When I opened 10 years ago, there were a lot of factors that went into the decision to open counter service. I was not thinking about tips at all. I think there are many counter service restaurants that take tips. There are a very small number, including mine, that now don't take tips. But that's not the driving factor in whether or not you pick a service style. There's a tremendous array of different factors that go into how you present your experience to customers that go into that. I think with the level of fear that many business owners have about wages and everything else in this industry, it's a very, very low margin industry. We're all under threat and under pressure and countless pressures. So any one thing can be identified as a thing that would tip you over to think any other issue differently. For me, the counter service decision was in no way around treatment and pay for workers. That was a separate thing for me. And then when we think about the wage structure and how that would impact, I think the argument that has been made about, if only you made the case that the regulation is pushing people towards a counter service model. I don't really understand that argument. It doesn't make any sense at all to me. The wage, I believe the government should have a basic floor for all standards. And if you want to pick that people, there's no picking of what service style you should enforce. By wages. You're saying that there's a fair wage that everyone should make. It is a minimum wage. If you make the argument that some establishments deserve a sub-minimum wage, then government is increasing regulation and picking winners and picking and enforcing the marketplace, which as a progressive person, but also someone who believes in a fair, free market, that makes no sense at all.
But the bill has a higher income level than the minimum wage in current law.
The bill has a higher wage than the minimum. So you'd be taking away from workers' wages so the tips would be credited towards the employer. We would reduce the wage of the worker. The employee would be guaranteed a higher wage, but they would be making less than they would have had you not taken away through this tip credit or penalty, whichever one you want to talk about. Clearly, if you didn't have what you're now talking about adding, the tips aren't going to change. It's just their wage will go down. It's very straightforward.
Representative Thiessen, you have the floor, so I'm not going to interrupt. Representative Thiessen.
No, well, thank you. I have one more question for Representative McDonald.
Please.
So would you be objectionable as this moves maybe to the floor, or as it's brought, I guess it's going to be rolled into the bill, to having an amendment that said that the owners of the restaurants, that any savings that they get because they don't have to pay, as a result of this mechanism, actually has to be paid to their employees to raise wages for the other employees?
Representative McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't think that's a good idea at all.
Why? I mean, the whole argument, Mr. Chair, the whole argument.
Are you done?
No, not quite yet.
Okay, just finish, then we'll go back to Representative Thiessen.
Representative Thiessen, were you here when Representative Baker was explaining some of the operations of his business and restaurant and the difficulties of running a business and the small margins? There's countless of restaurants that close in the first 3 years. It's so tough. The restaurant across the street from my studio, Charlie, a cousin of mine, barely could even make it. And as the government continues to force and increase the labor cost and force their wills and desires on him, the less that he'll be able to succeed. And that's the case for thousands of restaurants around our state. And there'll be no businesses, no restaurants, no service to be able to work. So no, it would not be my intention to have an amendment like that that would even further have the possibility of restaurants not being able to survive and have to close their doors.
Representative Thiessen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, and I appreciate that answer, and that's the answer I expected. I guess I was just responding to the argument that the reason for doing this is actually to raise the wages of the folks in the back room. And I think we're making the point that actually there's no guarantee that would happen. And so I think that that's just an important piece for people to consider. I guess the only two other things I would say, I mean, at the end of the day, what the real answer to this problem is that those of us who go to restaurants ought to actually be willing to pay a little bit more money so that everybody in our state can live on a living wage. And so the argument that we can't continue to raise wages, I think that there actually would be an appetite. And I think we've seen in other places, including Common Roots, as a matter of fact, where they are willing to raise the wages and actually advertise that as saying we're actually charging a little bit more because we're paying our employees a living wage. And I think that's the place that would be the thing that could actually unite everybody in this room. And we just live in an economy and kind of an ideological system where that's not the case. And so I hope that, as this moves forward, we can actually, as a society, and this is not something the government ought to mandate, but we as a society get to the point where people are willing to pay so that everybody can live on a living wage. And I think that we can get there someday, Mr. Chair. Thanks.
Thank you, Representative Thiessen. Ms. Schellenberg, closing comment from you, and then from the author. Members, we are out of time because I know both caucuses are meeting at 3. So, Ms. Schellenberg, any closing comments?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just had a couple comments from things to consider from what we've heard so far. The comment that there is no guarantee that good things will happen if we do a tip-tiered system is a little bit confusing to me because we know that there will be negative consequences if we don't. Wage theft is already illegal, so while I mirror that concern...
Schellenberg, hold on one second. We got stirring going on here, so wait for people to either exit or sit down, and then we can continue. Just wait 1 second. Are people exiting, or are they going to take their conversations outside, please? Okay, we'll wait for them to exit, and you can continue. 1 second.
Thank you.
Please continue.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So the comment that there is no guarantee that good things will happen confuses me because we know that if we do not do a tip-tiered wage and we move forward with wage increases, that there will be negative consequences. There are concerns that people have brought up on the other side that are totally valid, things like wage theft. Those concerns, while valid, are already illegal. So if that is a concern, then perhaps we need an amendment about enforcement. I don't think that scrapping the idea altogether because enforcement is an issue makes any sense. I have heard about...
Here, Mr. Chair. Okay.
Ms. Schellenberg.
I've heard people say that this will encourage abuse and mistreatment by owners. To that, I would say that what this encourages is a service fee model where the owners have more control over our income. I think that model encourages more abuse and mistreatment. I heard that people are fighting to get out of tip credits across the country. In all of those areas where people are fighting against tip credits, which are third-party organizations, there are tipped workers fighting to protect their tip credit. In New York alone, when Governor Cuomo decided that he wanted to go through the DOL to remove the tip credit, we had a group of servers form a page that grew to 18,000 since December. It was at over 18,000 as of yesterday. So that is a really great testament to how important the tip credit is to our community where it exists, as well as our community here as we're trying to get one. The term tip penalty is one that raises a lot of hairs in my community, specifically because it is inflammatory language This is legally called a tip credit. And I heard someone bring up the DOL rule. I don't know if everyone on this floor is familiar with the DOL rule, but it specifically applies to tipped workers who make more than the federal minimum wage, which is $7.25 right now. If our concern is the application of the DOL rule, then we should consider an amendment that would actually lower our wage to $7.24. Outside of that modification, the DOL rule can apply to us right now and moving forward, no matter what tiered system we do or do not have. I hear people talk about history. 30 years ago, the restaurant industry was very different than it is today. I think comparing the restaurant community 30 years ago to the flourishing scene that we have right now, and considering inflation, cost of goods, cost of housing, I think that that's a very different conversation. Not to mention that history is not always what we should be looking forward to. We pride ourselves on being a progressive state, and thinking about what we do moving forward is the truly progressive move. 5-10 years ago, gay marriage was illegal. That was not the right move, and we have moved forward with progress. Changing the tip-tiered system, or changing to one rather, is a more progressive move to maintain and protect the taxable tipped income that we rely on as tipped workers. I would also like to point out that what we're talking about today is not a 213 wage. We're not talking about encouraging or promoting poverty wages for the restaurant community. What we're talking about would be one of the highest tip-tiered wages in the entire country, if not the highest. I'm unfamiliar if New York has one that's higher, but if it is, it's less than $1. So this would be the most progressive tip-tiered wage in the entire country, or one of them at the very least. The talk about freezing our wages, something that people often overlook, is that because we are typically paid on commission, we're tipped by percentage, and the general socially acceptable percentage is 18 to 20%, means that as cost of goods rise and as wages for the back of house rise, so will our income, as that is reflected on menu prices. So keeping that in mind is very important, because our wage will continue to increase with cost of goods. And finally, what we are asking for hurts no one, but it protects our income and our small businesses. I really appreciate your consideration today. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative McDonald, before you go to your closing statement, I'd say that I think the testifier probably did a better job than you possibly can. So, Representative McDonald, I would give this suggestion, though. If you're going to advocate for this inclusion in the omnibus bill, I think you would be wise to follow Representative Thiessen's advice and advocate for additional enforcement at the Department of Labor and Industry for wage theft. I do think that would be a smart thing. It's a lot easier sell. Representative McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sincerely, on behalf of many in the room and those who couldn't be here today, thank you for the opportunity to give this bill a hearing and open the debate. It's very robust, a lot of passion, and I think we as Minnesotans, before we reach a tipping point, must do something to preserve our fine servers and restaurateurs and businesses. And with that, I'll close. And again, thank you so much, Mr. Chairman.
McDonald moves his motion to have House File 4061 laid over for possible inclusion in a later bill. Thank you. Members, that completes our agenda. We are adjourned.